county where they mainly grow, as you can see, soybeans and corn. It's quite rare to see any kind of livestock. This farmland is incredibly expensive per acre because of those beautiful crops. But a family over here on the east side of the county has returned most of their crop fields and production into Prairie. It's a beautiful prairie restoration. And we're going to go look at it. It's what they're calling Pruitt's Prairie. This is the village of Penfield, and Pruitt's Prairie would be on the south end. Well, as you can see, this is not Trempealeau County. I am down here in Champaign County, Illinois, and off to my left is the village of Penfield. And right across the road here from Penfield, we have a place that I visited last fall, which is Pruitt's Prairie. This is a little earlier today in the fall, so we're going to go around and look at another one of their prairie plantings. And the thing we want to remember is Illinois is called the Prairie State. And it used to have, millions of acres of prairie, and now it's down to actually somewhere around 1,000 is what I read. And the trick is to find true remnant prairie that's natural, that's never been farmed or tilled up. And when you find something like that, it's really interesting. Now, Pruitts do not have true remnant prairie, but they've got a really good planting. So let's go look at that. Yeah, it is a beautiful September day. So what are we looking at here, Karen?
So this is an old cow and then horse pasture that has a lot of, or after we took the animals off of it and did a good burn on it, things started coming back. That were here, kind of a savanna prairie, and my son's trying to restore it with local seed that he's collected from remnants. He's trying to restore it to what it might have been 80 or 90 years ago.
But it was never plowed.
As far as we know, it was never plowed.
Okay, so it was just grazed. So there's a good possibility that this is true prairie, now that it's gotten a chance to grow back up again. Mm-hmm. So what kind of plants have you found in here? I see the grasses. That's
Indian grass.
Indian grass.
Big blue stem. There's, in the spring it comes up in those beautiful little purple hyacinths. Wild hyacinths are, especially right out in there, there's kind of a flat plateau area and they really come in thick. And he's collected coreopsis, tall coreopsis, and rudbeckia. He knows the names better than I do. And of course there's always the heath aster, or the white aster that the honeybees make the stinky honey from.
The stinky honey, huh?
Yes. My boss at the U of I told me it smelled like dirty socks.
The dirty sock honey, huh?
Making aster honey from this frost aster because he had an observation hive and his office smelled like dirty socks for a week.
So when does this really start blooming, the aster?
Just about a week ago.
Okay, and right now it's what, September 20th?
And it can survive a frost, so it'll go until there's a pretty pretty hard.
So maybe that's why it's called frost aster.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
There's like heath aster, frost aster. I'm not as keen on keeping them separated, but aster. Little white asters that smell like dirty socks.
And then this plant right here, the grass is blue stem, right?
Yeah.
Big blue stem.
Uh-huh. Some of that was growing naturally on the hillside, and Jacob started collecting seed from it and scattering it around. So, in other words, that's local ecotype, local seed.
Beautiful.
Yeah, little clusters on the end of the stem.
Do we call them brown-eyed Susans? No, I know there is a name. There is a name for them, and unfortunately I don't remember. Because I've got some of those at our place too. All right, let's go up and look at some more prairie. That's what I've got. Mine are that color. They're not the bright purple. Well, they do look a lot different than the white asters, don't they?
Oh, much bigger.
Yeah.
They're lovely. There's quite a few of them out there, and they're spreading. This is their time of year.
Everything has its time and place.
That's right.
Okay, again, I'm going to have to do the disclaimer here that all the panting and the heavy breathing, that's the dogs, not me. All right, Jacob Pruitt, what are we looking at here ahead of us?
This side is a 10-year-old CRP planting that was planted in a more of a pollinator-based mix. I think it had 20 species or so in it. We have managed it, and we've also overseeded it in that time with some hand-collected seed and tried to enhance it a little bit. And we've also sprayed a lot of cool season grass as well in it.
So, you've got this under contract with Farm Service Agency?
Yes, and it's actually expiring this year.
And will you be able to re-up it?
No.
No?
Well, as of now, no, because it doesn't have enough ecological value.
Okay.
That's at least based on the rating system. So I think they said 2 projects out of 10 in this county got approved. But we're not going to farm it.
I was going to say, so you're going to rip it up and put it in the soybeans? About how many acres did you say you had here?
This field is about 12 acres.
And this is all restored prairie.
Yeah.
It's a prairie restoration. Because prior to this, it was in crops.
We have this in alfalfa and clover. This is our burn break. That way this stays green, and it's a nice barrier for when we do prescribed fire here.
Well, plus pollinators like it.
Yep, and so do the birds.
Yep, they love clover.
Yep, alfalfa is pretty versatile. So, gray-headed coneflower. There's some stiff goldenrod out there. Lots of common milkweed. Tons of pods out there. Monarchs are all over this usually, and the goldenrod is great for the monarchs as well. This is just Canada goldenrod or tall goldenrod. Most of this is, and but like I said, the monarchs like it. We don't necessarily love it in our restorations. It can become a monoculture, but here it hasn't.
So why do you think that it's different here, that the Canadian goldenrod isn't taking over more or less?
I think it thrives on disturbance. So once you establish the prairie turf, you know, there's so much competition that it'll still be present, it just won't be quite as abundant. This was probably seeded at a lower rate in the beginning than what I try to do now.
Now this plant that is directly ahead of me, right here, this is a goldenrod, correct?
Right.
But it's a different kind than what we normally see.
Yes.
Up by us.
And they changed the genus species on me. It used to be Solidago rigidum. Now starts with an O. The genus does, but it is stiff goldenrod, and it's a great pollinator species. I think there's some of this blooming I saw earlier, but this is just finished blooming. Here's some getting ready to go to seed. So there's several, and see there's the original seeded genetics in here, and then we also added some local genetics on top of that, and they have different flowering dates. So you get an extended bloom season.
Now, in the days before the white people were living here in large numbers, and you were moving through Illinois, do you think this is representative of what they would have seen as far as prairie?
Maybe. Probably more grass. And obviously it got grazed, and so this is maybe representative of it, but you can't recreate what was already there. We haven't figured out how to do it yet.
So the strips of remnant prairie, true remnant prairie, that I have seen in Illinois at old graveyards, is very colorful.
Yeah.
Extremely colorful.
Yeah, well, a lot of those old cemetery remnants, the reason they chose them was because they were the prettiest place around. So that's where they chose to bury their loved ones.
Right, well that makes sense, doesn't it? Well, you just wonder if you're crossing this countryside that was in prairie, and you are in something like an ox or horse-drawn wagon. I would imagine the grasses would have been way up almost over your head.
Yeah, we have when we planted this was more of a mix geared towards quail as opposed to restoration. Then we've added to it. But down the way, we've got some tall grass situation that I would have pictured a lot of this in.
So this is a tall grass restoration.
Yep.
Okay.
Here's one of the main grasses right here, Indian grass. Its seed heads they're pretty unique and they're easy to spot. And there's also big blue stem and switchgrass. Those are kind of the big three.
But these are grasses that benefit from burning. Is that true?
Yep. Depending on the time you burn. If you burn in the spring, it basically works as a duff removal tool and gets rid of the duff, and the grass starts growing later. It kind of spurs the growth. A lot of times you burn in the fall, you'll see reduced grass coverage. Not 100% sure why that is. Maybe it's the frost thaw cycle, but forbs tend to dominate after a fall fire.
Okay.
And then I haven't messed with growing season fires, but those can give you pretty amazing results as far as diversity as well.
Because I was considering doing my little prairie planting maybe in the fall, but then I thought, well, maybe that would be burning up all the seed heads that were left there from the summer. Is that what would happen or not?
That could happen, but you're gonna lose seed heads. Basically, what you want to do is try to aim for balance, so the timing of the fire should also sync with the timing of a plant you're trying to reduce.
To reduce, okay.
Yeah, so if I was trying to get rid of the goldenrod out here, I would try to burn it now.
Okay, okay. How many different kinds of goldenrod are there? We're looking at stiff, and then the other kind right here is what we normally see. That's the Canadian, correct?
Yep. There's also showy goldenrod, which is blooming right now. Lots of different species of woodland goldenrod. Grass leaf goldenrod is another one that's blooming out there. There's several, and they're all a little bit different.
And these seed heads, they almost remind me of some gentian plants I've seen, the real tight cluster.
Yeah, and they really poof out. They have a kind of nice texture.
Oh, look at that one.
Oh.
Yeah.
So they look a lot different.
Yeah, they're all soft and fuzzy then.
Then what these are kind of that dirty gray color.
Yeah. So if you have a bunch of these and it goes to seed in the fall, you're going to see a lot of white.
Yep, they go airborne and they can travel quite a ways. Speaking of gentians, we should go over and look and see if we can find the bottle gentian.
And they're incredible. But the blue ones are pretty rare by us.
I found some right here. Oh yeah. There.
So we're looking at bottle gentian.
The dogs are running it over.
Oh, great.
Yeah, here's some here, and then there's some all in front of
the blue. Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to get close so we can look at that. So this is the bottle gentian with the blue. Now I've got the cream gentian in Wisconsin. I don't know if I've ever seen the blue up there.
Yeah, it likes to be a little more wet, but yeah, it's a great one, and it stays fully closed. You know, sometimes the cream gentian can hybridize with the blue bottle gentian as well. Yeah, there's a scattered all through here.
So does it require, maybe it doesn't like to be crowded? Does it need a lot of light?
It wants a lot of light, yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, right in here you can see it's making its way up through all this. Well, this is just your Virginia wild rye, very simple, but it kind of is holding back some of the other stuff. And then here is a butterfly milkweed that's done blooming. So this is kind of the competition that it likes. Short, easy. Yeah, you can see there's 100 blooms through here.
Wow, yeah, and there is now. You start looking for them and pointing them out.
Yeah.
And so what kind of grass is that right in front of us, right here?
So that is Virginia wild rye.
Virginia wild rye, huh?
Yep. It is a very common grass around here, and yeah, it seems to pair well with the bottle gentian.
So
it likes to be more in a wet, partially shaded situation most of the time.
Well, but this is neither right here.
Right. Right. Yep. It's just exploiting, it's just kind of like, I mean, here's some bottlebrush grass. That's a savanna woodland grass. So it's growing where it can, which is fine with me.
Well, it's like you said before. You said the plants kind of sort themselves out.
They do, and this area doesn't have the best drainage. There probably needs to be a tile ran through here if we were to farm it again. So I'd rather have the bottle ginseng grow here. So
yeah, there's a whole bunch right down here by my feet. Look at that. That is beautiful. Now, sometimes I've seen some that's a brighter blue. What would determine how bright the color is?
That's a good question.
You don't think it's soil type? Maybe it's just...
Well, it could be. I mean, alkalinity with hydrangeas changes their color.
Yeah, that's true.
So that could be part of it. But there's also prairie gentian, which is the open one, and it's that dark royal purple.
Ooh, I don't think I've seen that.
But these are pollinated by bumblebees. They're the only ones strong enough to be able to open them and get down into.
The gentian.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, people don't realize it takes certain bees to actually pollinate certain plants because depending how long their little proboscis is, some just can't get down into some of them that have the real long stems. So that's why you need the diversity.
Yes.
Now, will you be burning this at all this fall?
We may burn it this fall. I haven't made my burn plans yet, but we may burn this section this fall. We actually burned the other 2/3 of this past spring. Back that way.
Now, what's sticking up above the grasses right ahead of us?
Okay. This one?
Yeah.
Tall Coreopsis.
Okay.
It's a great one. It has yellow flowers, obviously small flower heads, but yeah, it's a pretty common occurrence on the roadsides and in the old remnant cemeteries. And a lot of times in the remnants it's a lot shorter because of the competition. It'll only get half the size.
So does this grow, come up and really grow fast early so it gets a jump on the other plants to get up above them?
No, I think the plan is to take up root space, and if the other plants don't have root space, then they can kind of grow whenever they want.
Okay.
At least that's what I've seen, especially with the clump forming grasses and things like that. There will be just bare dirt around them because nothing can compete with the roots, which is great for game birds.
And you get game birds in here?
Yeah, we probably had 1 pheasant per acre on this farm last year, so that's a pretty good number.
And did you introduce the game birds?
No, they moved in on their own. Pheasants mostly.
Yeah?
Yes.
Because most of the land around here is farmland, and it's either in corn or soybeans.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, is that a natural habitat for game birds?
I think yes and no. It can be done right. I don't have a problem with farming, but yeah, it can be very incompatible as well. We'll say that.
Okay. So you say they moved in, so from where?
Yeah, they're amazing how well they can survive. These are wild birds. But,
yeah.
They'll hunker down on drainage ditches, or there's hedgerows out here, which were an early 1900s thing. Basically for windbreaks when they were put in. I think USDA put those in. But they managed to hang on here and there, and then now the places we used to go for pheasants with brome and stuff like that, they don't hold any pheasants because of these pollinator places. Once hunting season, all the pheasants move in here during hunting season.
So that's pretty good. You can go right out your front door and go hunting birds.
That's right. We've done it more than a few times.
That's pretty cool. Are there any other, you said pheasants, are there any other kind of game birds?
We have not seen any, no, I haven't seen any quail around here. That's a kind of a long-term goal of mine, but they just haven't showed up.
Now, what about grouse? We get grouse up where we live.
Nope, we're south of the grouse range.
Okay. And interestingly enough, our county, Trempealeau County, which now has a lot of trees, before the 1900s was noted for a good place to go hunting prairie chickens.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there hasn't been a prairie chicken up there in over 125 years or not longer. Did they have them down here?
Oh yeah, there were prairie chickens here. Yep. There was a refuge. There's a refuge actually south of here, about an hour and a half. A prairie chicken refuge.
Really?
And they have them there. Yeah. They'd had to supplement them from Kansas, but they were working. So yeah.
Well, this shows you how things change, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever hunted prairie chickens?
Nope.
Maybe there isn't anywhere you can hunt prairie chickens.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think their numbers are low. There might be a few places.
Well, they must have either been fun to hunt or good to eat or both, because people came to our county to hunt prairie chickens.
Yep.
Which I think most people will probably find surprising, because we are certainly no longer prairie.
So if you want, we can go walk down the little trail over there.
Let's go walk down the road. We have a couple of bluebird houses. Is that what they are?
Yeah. Yep. I was told to put them in pairs of 2.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because a tree swallow will take one of them, and then the bluebird will take one.
Oh.
That's what I was told.
That makes sense. That's an interesting strategy. Have you had any bluebirds?
Yeah, we've seen them, but I don't know if any have hatched out. I don't check the nest near often enough.
And they would probably be gone by now.
Yeah, they're gone by now.
Yeah, they come back, by us, they come back very early in the spring, the bluebirds. Like in March, you know, when, so you really need to get those bluebird boxes cleaned out before March, anyway.
Get them open so the mice don't nest down.
Right.
So,
is this a different patch here?
So this is a different patch. This one's a little more grassy. I think it's 5 or 6. This is a 5 or 6 year old planting. But this one's a little more like what I picture what the prairie probably looked like. A lot more grass.
Yeah.
You could easily kind of get lost in it.
And I guess they remind us that prairies were grazed. There were animals out there that chewed on the prairie.
Well, and with grazing, usually the animals would target burned areas, and they'd target the grasses in the burned areas. So that would release the forbs. A lot of the forbs they're not real palatable. They're sandpapery. They don't feel good. They want the grass, so that changes the competition dynamic in the grasses.
Well, that's interesting. I know they talked about the aspect of whether it be deer or antelope or buffalo or wild horses walking through the prairie. And that was
disturbance.
Right, and that was really helpful. And that if you were really into prairie, you might want to consider renting some buffalo to drive through it once in a while.
Even cows work too.
That's
Sometimes
right.
You can make some money in doing so.
There you go.
Okay, now we're talking. This is what I picture the tall grass prairie looking like. I'm gonna go back about 10 steps here. So how about that?
Yeah.
It was literally a sea of grass.
And I can see how people could get lost in it.
Yes, yeah. And this is a very small area, but you get in here and it's almost like it's a forest itself. Again, this one's Indian grass right here, this clump. You can see that I'm 6 foot tall, so it's right there.
Wow.
And then this one, you can also see the big blue stem. It's the turkey foot grass.
Right.
But those are the primary grasses, and then there's also some little blue stem kind of in the understory as well. And then forbs as well. There's some New England asters right up here.
Tell me what the purple is that we're looking at right here.
So this is the native New England aster. It's one of my favorite fall flowers. Great for the monarchs. They seem to love it. This, we didn't plant these, I know for sure, because they were one of the first ones to come up after we killed the fescue off here. We had a bunch of tall fescue out here, so yeah, they're in full bloom right now.
And
they make great bouquets as well.
And the pollinators love them, don't they? There's a honeybee.
Yes, they do.
Right there. And they are related to the small frost aster. They're a
Yep.
cousin.
Yeah, kind of a cousin, I'd say. Yeah.
So there's always something that's providing color here. What about, Karen and I were trying to think of the name of these little yellow flowers here.
Those are brown-eyed Susans.
Well, that's what I said, and she didn't believe me.
Yep. Rudbeckia triloba.
Okay.
Yep, they got 3-lobed leaves.
Yeah. I always called them brown-eyed Susans. But I've also found that a lot of plants have more than one name. You know, local people will call it one thing.
Oh, sure.
And then another locality will call something the same thing by another name.
It's best to narrow down the Latin.
Yeah, I guess so.
So.
Oh, those are tall, aren't they?
Yeah, this is another one. Sawtooth sunflower is what this one is. And another one that's pretty present throughout the county. If you'll see it in the road ditches this time of year and stuff where they can't mow. But great for pollinators and very showy, and kind of also provides backbone to the prairie for the winter. These things will stand up all winter once they harden off.
So do you have birds that don't leave in the winter? Do they perch on them or?
Oh yeah, yeah,
out?
and absolutely. A lot of the grassland birds need perches like this that are up above everything. That's what they want.
Sure.
Yeah.
So people that are really into feeding the birds and providing habitat for them, this is something that they should consider.
Yeah, yeah. Consider something like this. Absolutely.
Because besides needing food, the birds also need somewhere to hang out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now I do not usually mow my prairie in the fall, because if I leave it up all winter, it seems that I see, things are out there and using it.
Yeah, and a lot of the native bees that live in the stems and stuff need those standing stems.
Yeah.
If they're laying down, it might work or it might not, just based on humidity and stuff like that. So it's best to just leave them standing, I think.
Yeah. So how long have you had this planted here? You said 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, I think this one's on year 5 maybe for this one. And this one on this side is year 2, I think.
So the little thing people remember is first year it sleeps, second year it creeps, third year it leaps.
And this planting is definitely creeping, which is fine.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see. Usually the pivot point with these plantings is their first good burn.
Now, another thing I see here, you had a lot of Queen Anne's lace.
Yes.
Right. Now, some people think it's just a terrible plant, that it's taking everything over, but it seems like I've noticed with a lot of things, sometimes they reach a peak where there's so much of it and then it kind of declines.
Yeah. Yeah, so you just got to think, if and I've tried it, if you go through and mow these, that's still a disturbance, and Queen Anne's lace thrives on disturbance.
Okay.
So sometimes the best thing to do is just let nature cycle, leave it alone, and it will fade over time. The same thing goes with these frost asters as well. Usually they're there at first, and then over time other things are favored.
So everything has its place and time, more or less.
Yep. That's right.
Sorting themselves out.
Yep.
Now, do you get trees coming up in your prairie plants?
Yes, we do. Usually with trees, we'll try to manage those after a fire when everything is clean and black. And we found just a little application of herbicide on the top of even if it's top killed on the top of the stump, will take care of the mulberries and calorie pears and autumn olive and bush honeysuckle. Those are probably 4 of the main offenders.
So True Prairie did not have a lot of trees growing in it, but there were spots, right? Like oak savannas and that?
So, and I would say that where we're standing now was more likely a grassland to woodland transition, so like a savanna. Under some of these, there's all these trees, and then in the spring, when you look under them, it's spring ephemerals. So that really tells a story about what was probably here a long time ago before they cut down all the trees, because trees don't feed cattle.
So what are spring ephemerals?
Spring ephemeral wildflowers are things like trillium and Dutchman's breeches and wild hyacinth and different things like that. They come and they go really quickly, almost seasonally.
Mm-hmm. What kind of trees would have been native to this part of Illinois? Do you know?
Yeah, there's a good chance, according to some of the biggest trees on the property here, that it was a bur, oak, basswood woodland. So there was the primary overstory species would have been bur, oak, and basswood, and then a lot of understory shrubs and some opening meadow type things is what I'm imagining.
Now the Osage orange trees that we see, are they native to Illinois?
No. So those were all planted and have been spread by birds and people and everything else.
So they're native to what? Was it Texas and Oklahoma?
Yeah, I think, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. Yeah, I think that's where they were native to.
So an introduced species.
Yep.
They just get moved around.
Yep, and I cut them down, but I'm not totally worried about them either. They aren't so invasive, so.
They're easy to manage.
Yeah, easier to manage.
And back to the Osage orange, it's a very tough wood, very dense, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very tough, very dense, rot resistant, and high BTUs, so good for heating with.
I've never seen that growing up by us. It must be way too far north.
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah.
Another one of my least favorite plants. So this will all be getting an herbicide treatment. This is all wild parsnip.
Oh.
This is the first year rosette. So generally in the fall, I wait for the native stuff to go dormant, and then I spray the parsnip with glyphosate.
So point out the parsnip. Okay,
this is
that's
wild parsnip.
it. Okay, and it has what color of blossom? White?
It's yellow.
Oh, it's yellow.
Yep.
Okay.
And so this is the one that it's phototoxic. So if you break it open and get the juice on your skin,
sure.
you will break out into huge blisters, and you'll have a bad day.
Yep, we have that goes up by us, mainly road ditches, and along where the the town and the county has been mowing along the.
Oh yeah, it gets spread by mowers
so it
all
gets
the time.
spread.
So I've been managing it really hard out here. This whole thing used to be wild parsnip, and we kind of got a handle on it. So
do you think you'll be able to replace it with other plants?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. That's the plan, is to get rid of it and let other plants fill in, basically.
So yes, there's always some management involved.
Absolutely.
Because I've talked to people that they like the idea of prairie, but they want something that they don't have to put any effort into, really. And they want something fast.
Right.
They don't always want to wait for that 3-year sleep, creep, and leap.
Well, you got to tell them to get a grip on reality.
Yeah, really. Just tell them that good things come to those who wait.
So there's a parsnip right there that is
still
blooming.
Yes, we have that up by us. But there are some other plants that look a lot like it.
Oh yeah. Yep. Prairie parsley would be one. Very hard to tell the difference. First glance.
You got an apple tree or no, an oak growing here?
Yeah, that's an oak. And that's a bur oak. So these were all planted at the same time. There's a red oak, a bur oak, and this one's a chinkapin. And the bur oak is twice the size of the other two. So that's what wants to be here.
So what's a chinkapin? I've never heard of that.
Chinkapin oak. So it's just got a little different leaves. It's in the white oak family. It has the sweetest acorns out of any of the oaks. They're small, but they're sweet. Wildlife prefer them.
Yeah. Yeah, their leaf is almost more like an elm or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's serrated on the edges almost.
Chinkapin, is that what they also call a pin oak?
No, pin oaks are different.
That's
pin oaks are
else.
red oak family.
Oh, okay.
Yep. These are white oak. They prefer a higher pH.
Okay.
But you'll see them on a lot of the river slopes around here.
And what have you got down there? It's not a maple, that yellow tree.
That's another chinkapin oak.
That's a chinkapin.
And it doesn't look so well. It's got some chlorosis going on, and I'm not sure why. So it may not make it.
What's chlorosis?
So that's when the leaves turn yellow because the plant is not making chlorophyll as it should.
Okay.
And it could be from a lot of different. It might just not like that spot, so
yeah,
we'll just replant. We actually have a bunch of acorns we're gonna spade in around here. So
now you planted that one.
Yep.
Okay.
I planted that one.
Okay.
Yep.
So that is maybe why it doesn't like it there. That if it had its choice, it would have been someplace else.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
And then, and here's another thing. So we've been managing bush honeysuckle. So there's a big dead one. So this was sprayed last fall.
Okay.
Just sprayed with glyphosate with a backpack sprayer. Actually, there's a ton of it that I killed around here. There's also ones that I didn't, and then you can see the seedlings coming in here, back in there.
Honeysuckle?
Yeah, those are all Asian bush honeysuckle. So we kind of have we do a fall glyphosate application after the native plants are dormant, and we seem to get pretty selective targeted kills. So like the black cherry behind it wasn't affected by the spray at all.
Okay.
So that's the best way we've found to deal with it, and then it crumples pretty quickly after it's dead.
Now, for many years, this was cattle pasture. right? It was grazed.
Yep, this area was a cattle pasture. Yep. And it was grazed hard. This farm was kind of worn out when my family acquired it.
Now, on the left side of the road here, are you going to leave this in clovers?
Yeah, the neighbor likes to maintain this edge up next to his crops, so we just tell him go ahead.
Uh-huh.
That way we don't have to maintain it, and it keeps him happy. That's another thing we run into is a lot of the farmers just aren't big fans of CRP because they blame their weed problems on the CRP when in reality it's probably other reasons.
Okay. Well, it makes sense.
Like when you spray the CRP with herbicide,
Yeah.
usually weeds come up after you kill all the good stuff off, so.
Well, it used to be, unless they've changed, that you weren't supposed to be out spraying your CRP unless you had something that was, invasive that was moving in,
Right.
and you didn't have any other way to manage it, so then you had to ask for permission.
Yep.
Because I had a problem with that purple vetch,
Yeah.
crowned vetch, and it had initially it had been planted across the road from us on some banks, and it never really grew. I mean, it sounded like a great idea and it was pretty, but it never really grew. Well, I bet about 10 years down the road, all of a sudden it jumps the road, and I'm sure because of the roadside mowing, and then it was on our side of the road. And then it was getting into my CRP field, and there'd be spots of it way out in the center of the field, away from the road. Now, I'm not sure how that seed got over there, but it did. And so I was getting all these spots of crown vetch. So finally, we just took when the CRP contract ran out, we did not renew it because it just, I was getting too old to be out there fighting it all the time.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. They can be tricky.
But I'm not even sure how that seed was spread, but however it was very successful.
I blame everything on the deer.
Well, that could be.
Yeah, they get some mud on their hooves.
Sure.
Take it anywhere.
Sure, that makes sense, doesn't it? Or even if I had driven out there, something could have got on my tires and got spread.
That's right.
Now last year we looked at the CRP that was across the road here, and that was an older planting, I believe.
There's some of that stiff goldenrod blooming with a honeybee on it.
Ah. Okay. Stiff goldenrod, okay. In bloom, like a lot of the other stuff is already done for the year.
So here's one of the Canada goldenrods for comparison.
Uh-huh. Well, they are quite different when you put them right next to each other. Well, that's interesting.
Yep, and the leaves are almost, they have a real coarse texture to them as well.
So that coarse texture, do you think that was developed by the plant to keep being devoured by
That could be.
deer or buffalo or whatever?
That could be.
Because they probably don't like eating something that's that rough.
Yeah, I would imagine they don't.
So do you think stiff goldenrod, would it grow far north?
Oh yeah, it would grow up
It
there.
has a long range.
It's very adaptable. Yep. And we didn't plant any of it, so
Oh, you didn't?
no. We planted the stiff goldenrod and the showy goldenrod and the grassy gold. We didn't plant any of the Canada goldenrod. It just showed up on its own, which is pretty typical around here.
Yeah. But the stiff goldenrod, does that go? That goes pretty far north too.
Yeah, it does. Yep.
So during the summer, when lots of things are blooming, I imagine you can hear things buzzing in here sometimes.
Yeah. One of my favorite things to do is park in the road and listen to our property on one side and then roll up the window and listen to the property on the other side. There's usually a very drastic difference.
I would imagine.
Lots of life out there.
Yeah.
It's the bottom of the food chain. So.
But it's a very important part of the food chain.
Exactly. Well, the bottom is the most important part.
Yeah, that's right. That's what holds everything else up, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now there's something that we've had up by us, which I don't believe you would have down here, and that's on south-facing slopes of bluffs. We have goat prairie.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that?
We don't have the
No.
topography around here, but in southern Illinois along the Mississippi River, there's quite a bit of it. River bluffs and things like that. Hill prairies, basically.
And unfortunately by us, they're now getting tree covered, the bluff sides, and the goat prairie is really, it's going to be a thing of the past pretty soon. It's really hard to maintain it. It's really hard to bring it back. It's an incredible amount of work. I mean, there are people that are trying to do it, but it's tough. The land is changing. It's changing into something else.
Fire is the best tool.
Right.
The most efficient.
You take the fire out of the picture and it really changes. Our county was Prairie when the first white settlers came in, and that was in the 1850s. But now we've got a lot of trees. And it's because, number one, they stopped burning. There were natural burns, and the Native Americans did a lot of burning. And then they stopped that. So then they still had their cattle and livestock grazing, even on the hillsides. But when they took the cows out of the woods, then the woods really grew up and spread. So what was once prairie, now we have a lot of trees. Nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying it's interesting how it segued into something really different.
Yeah, Dr. Greg Nowacki gives a great presentation on it. He coined it mesophication.
Mesophication?
Mesophication of the eastern U.S.
Really?
And it's a very interesting topic that shows how all these things play into each other.
Okay.
The problem started with us.
So is that on YouTube or?
Yeah, I think you can find it on YouTube for free. Yeah.
Meso, like M-E-S-E-O.
M-E-S-O-P-H-I-C-A-T-I-O.
Mesification. And what is his name? Nowacki?
Yep, Dr. Greg Nowacki.
Is it with an A or an I?
It's with, I believe it's with an A.
Okay. I'll have to look that up. That would be really interesting.
Yeah, it's very applicable.
All right. Well, thanks, Jacob, for giving us another tour here of this prairie that is starting to leap, I guess you could say.
You're welcome.
Yep. And I hope everybody considers prairie, especially if you're sick of mowing your lawn.
Absolutely.
You bet. And there won't be any other species of goldenrod blooming? These are like the last bloom?
These are about the last.
Okay, and the pollinators love them.
Yes, the solitary bees.
Solitary.
Little teeny tiny,
Uh-huh.
1/4 to 3/8 of an inch long. They're just so tiny.
That's interesting.